Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice, the podcast for women who are done waiting for the one and ready to become the parent on their own damn terms. We're talking fertility, pregnancy, emotional chaos, and the village that it takes to raise a kid. Sometimes you're crying in the bathtub. Sometimes you're crying because your toddler bit you. And sometimes you cry because you chose all of this. Welcome to motherhood, solo style. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice. I'm your host, Laura. Sometimes our ideal birth story doesn't go the way that we had imagined. For 9 months, many of us mentally prepare for a magical, calm, movie-style birth experience. But sometimes things happen unexpectedly. Baby decides to arrive early. The placenta isn't supporting them as it should. Or other medical risk factors change the plan into something that we did not prepare for. When a baby is born too early or needs extra support, they might need to be whisked away to the NICU, a safe place where they can be closely monitored, supported, and even given time to grow. In today's conversation, we reconnect with previous guests to talk about their NICU experiences. Their stories are honest, emotional, and incredibly important. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Choosing Chaos, everybody. I am your host, Laura, and I'm joined by Kristen, Annie, and Lindsay for a NICU conversation. All right, we all ready? Want to get your introductions in?
I'm Lindsay. My son is Hudson, and he's 2 years old, and he was a 31-week 5-dayer. We spent 6 weeks in the NICU.
It's not a competition here.
No.
I feel like that's like a mom thing or a NICU mom thing. I am Kristen. I have 34-weeker twins. Spent only 23 days in the NICU, and they just turned 20 months, so almost just over a year and a half.
I'm Annie. My daughter is Sabina. She is 5. She was born at 39 weeks, but she has Down syndrome, so that gave us a just only 11 days stay. We were pretty lucky.
My son was not in the NICU. He probably should have been because of his birth weight, but we're here for this conversation with them, not me.
How much did he weigh?
He was 4 pounds, 15 ounces.
He was born 40 weeks, or when
37 and a half. I had gestational hypertension, but I think that he had IUGR that was undiagnosed.
What's that?
Intrauterine growth restriction. I only gained 12 pounds my whole pregnancy. At one point it was 14 and then I lost 2.
Did you have morning
sickness? I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you have morning sickness? Or did you?
God, I threw up from 9 weeks until 29 weeks because of, I'm pretty sure, the undiagnosed hypertension the whole time. That's a whole different episode.
Conversation for a different day.
We are all NICU moms here except for me. And how would you say that the NICU changed the experiences of early motherhood? Because everybody basically delivered a little bit earlier than expected.
I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how parents are allowed to take their kids home without a NICU stay. I learned so much from that experience. I'm not saying, like, thankfully we were not long haulers. I think that's incredibly difficult. We were kind of in long enough, if you will. But the amount that I learned, like, from the nurses that are like in our care team on a day-to-day, like from simple things like how do you change a diaper on a tiny human. My kids were born at 3 and 4 pounds, and they were diagnosed growth restricted. So we knew that they were going to be small. We didn't know they were going to come at 34 weeks. I had a scheduled C-section actually at 37 weeks or 36 and a half, and then they came super early. But it's, in hindsight, especially as a solo mom, it was like the best thing that happened to me because it allowed me time to recover while they were getting the care that they needed. I didn't have to figure out how to do both like 4 days after a C-section.
It was terrifying because I had an emergency and we didn't know Hudson was growth restricted. He was 2 pounds, 5 ounces. I had no idea. Everything was going as planned. And then I, had severe preeclampsia and was sent in a 2-hour ambulance jaunt across the lake to the nearest NICU. Yeah. And by myself, So when the doctor was like, hey, you're having a baby tonight. And I was like, whoa, hold on. I've got a little bit more time. And they're like, no. And I was like, no, you told me you would keep this baby inside of me. And they're like, no, we actually can't because he needs some food. And my umbilical cord was doing reverse flow. He was not getting any food. So he's like, bad Yelp review, get out. And then the second he got out, it was like crazy because, you know, he's this big. And I knew how to take care of a regular size baby. I have lots of cousins, lots of family, but how am I supposed to, like, there's all these diapers and how do you get the wires, and that was the big learning process. And just I think of all like the big moments. The first time he drank from a bottle was like, you know, to have a nurse be the first person to do that. And she was fabulous. I loved all of my care team, but it was like, okay, so now where's my shot? And then the first bath in the NICU was, well, and they cut his little baby jail tag off. And I'm like, so I just make an escape? And she's like, don't even think about it. Because all of the big moments, the first smile, the 2 month, hey, here you are, your little photos that you plan for. I had a whole photo backdrop and all that good stuff. And it was the hospital room instead. It was definitely different, but I agree with Kristen. You can't, I'm like, people just go home like after 2 days and they just take this little human and they like take care of it by themselves. It was a surprise when we were being discharged. Like I wasn't sure. They were like, oh, we don't like to give you your hopes up and we don't in case something happens. And then I called to check one night from the Ronald McDonald House and they were like, yeah, you're leaving on Sunday. And I was like, hold up. No, no, no. No, I'm leaving. Who's coming with me? Which one of you are coming with me? Like, who's going to be checking all of his stats in the middle of the night? Like, they're like, you don't have to do that anymore. I was like, no, 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 no.
I went in for one day and was very much expecting to like be there for a few more days because their heart rates were dropping. And so, like, there's certain levels at which that can happen before they let you go home. And so they were waking themselves up, so it wasn't a problem. But all of a sudden, I was like, "Wait, I'm going home. Excuse me, what? Like, I'm not ready for that."
It was intense.
Yeah.
Annie, what about you?
It was kind of nice to have, I hate to say this, but it was like my second night there because I had a C-section too. I was like, euphoric. I don't know if it was just the hormones, but I was like euphoric. I was like, I feel like I'm staying in a hotel and I can just go down and see my baby and they're taking care of her and I can come back and like text my friends pictures. I mean, obviously I was very worried about her too, but no, the nurses were so great. I only had one horrible experience with one nurse, but they taught me so much, especially with feeding and like about the bottle flows and the nipples and how to hold her. And that was really nice. I think I'm definitely traumatized though from all the beeping, like the beeping. I still hear those beeps. And, you know, I'm sure you guys were like this too. Anytime it would beep, because we had like an open room. We did not have a separate room. We were like in cubbies divided by shower curtains.
Yes.
And so you could hear
no,
everything,
I
and
did
I'd be
not.
like, I'm like looking like, okay, she's beeping, like, oh my God, where are you? Where are you? You know, and they were just, not that they were blowing it off, they always came, but it was just so terrifying in the beginning. But they're calm, they're being calm. It's like the flight attendants. When there's turbulence and you look at the flight attendants, they're calm. It's kind of the same with the nurses, you know, you're like looking at them, are they freaking out, you know, or um
One of the nurses, when we were there, said to me, she's like, the NICU is like a casino, right? There's always lights and sounds. They're windowless rooms, so you have no idea what time of day it is. And then like I built off of it and I was like, and you're here taking all of my money, and what do I get from it, right? Like we joked with our neonatologist. He was going on vacation to somewhere, I don't know, a very fancy hotel, and I was like, you're welcome, right? Because he's billing at like 5 grand a day and he sees them for 15 minutes a day. I'm like, that must be nice. And then we was joking, he has like a second house and he was like, thank you again. Recognized. Like,
is he single?
I don't think so. And also like way older than both of us. All three
That's
of us,
okay.
four of us, I guess.
Sugar daddy, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I
Got to
mean,
keep your options open. Did you guys have a full OT, PT care team together at where you guys were?
not in the NICU, no.
We did. I don't really think they did a whole lot. We didn't, I don't know that we had OT. We had, sorry, this was also 5 years ago, and as Laura and Kristen know, I have a lot of brain farts, but I I know we had some lady, but I think she was PT, but she really only like gave her massages, and then we had like
That
lactation
sounds
consultant.
delightful.
I know, right? She kind of,
Yeah.
I wish she was giving them to me, but it was just a Sabina. We had a lactation consultant, but she actually kind of was was not very helpful. I think I had 3 bad experiences in the NICU. This was one of them. The day before, she didn't come see me at all, and then the next day she's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't come see you. I didn't have enough time." And I was just, or it was the way she put it that I just felt like, well, why didn't you have enough time for me? Like, why am I getting pushed last? And I think it was because my daughter has Down syndrome, and one, she's going to be harder, and two, the expectations are lower that she was going to breastfeed, And I just
But that's
remember her
not
saying that, and
right.
me kind of looking at her that's just like a really weird thing to say in a sense, to be like, I didn't have time to come see you. And I'm like, but wait a minute, this is like hospital setting, and um maybe they need another lactation consultant if, like if you're
Right.
pushed to but
I probably would have asked that question though. Is it because my daughter has Down syndrome? Like, are you treating her differently? Because she deserves the same care as everybody else.
I don't think I really realized it at the time,
Yeah,
like
that's true.
I did have a book about breastfeeding with Down syndrome that I had started before because I was really determined to do it. But I also found that a lot of people, they don't know a lot about Down syndrome. Like, even there was one female doctor, because we only had like one doctor for the whole NICU. I don't know if this is how it was for you guys. So there was only one doctor and then a gazillion nurses, but I think it was a pretty small NICU. I'm not sure, it's the only one I've ever been in, but there was one man and he was great. He knew about Down syndrome. He knew about a lot of things, but I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but the female doctor, I loved her personality. I thought she was great, but she didn't know a lot about Down syndrome. There were certain things that are actually typical with babies with Down syndrome that she was like not freaking out about, but kind of freaking me out about. Like, she had really high platelets, and so I was like, well, what does that mean? She's like, well, it could be a brain bleed. I'm like, oh my God, that's terrifying. And then I went to a Facebook group. There's a ton of Facebook groups about Down syndrome, and it's a very typical thing for babies with Down syndrome to have high platelets, and there's no brain bleed. So I feel like that was just kind of across the board in a sense, with like maybe that lactation consultant too.
See, we had a whole rotating group of, like, they called it the feeding team at first because obviously that's what Hudson was learning to do. We had PT, OT, and they would rotate and they would come and feed him, and kind of see how he was doing, and they saw him every day. And
Yeah.
then we had the different doctors and all that stuff. We actually had follow up all the way. We just graduated from our neonatal development follow up. And I think it was because of Hudson was so tiny. They were, as you probably know, when you get admitted, they're like, "Oh, here's everything that's going to be wrong with your baby." So you get the whole big list, and I'm like, "Okay, but let's just get him out safely, and then let's worry about all the other stuff." They are where we were at. We're UVM in Burlington, and the
Go Cats.
yeah,
I went to UVM.
the doctor that delivered him, she was fabulous, and then the doctor that swooped him away came and saw me that night and kind of gave me the lowdown and all that good stuff. The care team there was insane. The amount of people that would come see you and see Hudson on every single day basis. They were checking in. I was lucky enough that I was able to stay in Burlington because it's like a 2-hour trip for me. I stayed at the Ronald McDonald House. I was able to be there every morning for rounds and got to hear all of the stuff. I think I only missed like 3 rounds. I got to the point where I could like state my entire medical history in like 30 seconds, and then I'd be like, okay, like give me the update, because I'm always like, how much did he gain? How did he sleep? What's all the stuff? Because I would leave at 9 o'clock at night and then be back at 9 o'clock in the next morning.
Was it like a teaching hospital
It
or
was, yeah.
yeah. I feel like those always, like, because we were at like the second tier, kind of like, we weren't at the big hospital associated with the children's, so I feel like that's probably why we had less I guess intervention.
Yeah.
Speaking about like what you were getting, because that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, we still got like we went every 3 months to get our full like developmental like layout. We would meet with the PT, OT, dietitian every 3 months, and they finally just graduated and told me I no longer have to feed him in the middle of the night. I'm like,
What, two? Wow.
Yeah, well,
Good for you.
because he was so small. He's
Yeah.
only 25 pounds right now.
Yeah, but that's how big my kids are. And they're the same, probably like a different adjusted
Yeah.
age, but
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know. That's
Sabina's
interesting.
5 and or almost 5. She'll be 5 in February. She only weighs 33 pounds
Mhm.
right now still. But I mean, again, we have a different diagnosis. So were you at an early intervention? Was the OT speech and all of that through early
It
intervention?
was just
Or
through based on his birth weight and his gestational age. That was like their cutoff because my friend that I met in the NICU, her baby was born bigger and literally 2 days gestationally older, and he didn't have to see the care team. I mean, he saw when he was in the hospital, he saw the PTOT, all of that, but he didn't see any of the other follow-up specialists that Hudson sees. And then like we still see the eye doctor every year, and we see the kidney specialist. So we've seen her once, and then we'll see her again when Hudson's 5. But like all the other moms that I met in the NICU, they didn't have that follow-up. I was like the only one that was still going back to the hospital every 3 months.
oh, so you went to the hospital.
Yeah.
They weren't coming to you.
No, I went.
Because Sabina, so a lot of times with kids with disabilities, like you go into early intervention. When she was 4 months, we started getting therapies in the house.
See, they signed us up for early intervention, but it was a phone call basis, and then every single time she kept trying to discharge me, and I was like, time out. Like, we're not discharging until he's at least a year. And then the nurse did come because I needed to do like weekly weigh-ins when we weren't going to either his regular pediatrician or Burlington. So they wanted to weigh. We had the home health nurse come in, but she just weighed him and pieced out.
It's interesting because Annie, our experience is the same as yours. It's like we were discharged from the hospital, and then I actually like sought out early intervention, which is like something I'm annoyed about with our NICU because I'm like, why didn't you guys tell me about this? And I think it's because it's done on a county by county basis, at least in Colorado. Maybe they just didn't know the resources in the county that I live in, which is the adjacent county, because I live outside of Denver and we are at a hospital close to downtown. Yeah, so we've sought out early intervention, and since they were 3 months adjusted, we've been in early intervention, and we just graduated from physical therapy because they're meeting close actually to 2-year-old milestones as far as like fine and gross motor skills, but they're speech delayed. We still have speech therapy every week, and we'll have that for this foreseeable future, but same thing, that's through early intervention,
Yeah.
like outside of our NICU care team.
Yeah, that's interesting how they did it with you. So there are two, you said, 8 or 20 months?
Hudson
Your
is
20 months,
yeah, the twins
the
are
twins
right.
are.
Yeah, and he's like 26 months, almost 26.
Okay. So then at 3 would be when you guys would transfer to the
We'll
school.
get,
If you
yeah, out
if
of early intervention
you'll get an
into
IEP and do all
an
that.
IEP. Yep.
I mean, hopefully they'll be, have you looked into an AAC device, or is that not
I have no idea what that means.
it's like a communication device. That's what I was like at speech today, like basically fighting with our therapist about. It's like a little like an iPad and they can communicate on it. But if they're progressing and they don't have
They're progressing and they sign really well.
oh, that's
So,
good. And if they're not, like if there's no like it's just speech delay with no other diagnosis, is that
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like cognitively they're just
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say take a step back because Lindsay was talking about like cares and the timing. So when we did like in the NICU, and you see a lot of parents with like sleep stuff now, in the NICU, you have cares that happen every 3 hours. And what that time schedule will look like sort of varies based on that. So ours was 5, 8, 11, 2, around the clock. And then I like kept that when we went home. And then slowly as the babies would like sort of sleep through it or things like that, I would drop like waking them up or drop bottles and things like that. When people are like, my babies like don't sleep on a schedule, I'm like, oh no, we've been on a schedule since like the minute they were born.
Lindsay and I were just talking about this when we started the conversation about how our kids don't really like to sleep.
That's part of why I was late. It's like they fell asleep in the car, and then we had to like bring them upstairs, and then they went straight back to sleep. Like my
I
kids
promise
sleep
it'll get
so well.
better. I was there.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I was saying to Lindsay, I think it's like part teeth, part regression. And there's always a regression. I swear it never ends. Every
Sabina's
time I
up, like,
Google
12
it,
hours.
it's like, it's a regression. I'm like, oh, gosh.
It's so frustrating. Yeah, it's really it's just pretty miserable. But I promise it will end because I felt like there was no end in sight. Sabina slept like babies with Down syndrome are notorious for sleeping a lot. But as soon as we started solid, that's my correlation is when her sleep just got horrible. And she'd be up for like 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night, just up like, and I would
That's
just,
where
You
we're
ready to
at.
party, mom?
We're
but
out
yeah,
there right now.
Let's party.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's miserable. And that was like when I was like, I felt like the worst mom was in those moments because I mean, I just had no patience and I was so tired but it does get better.
I'm hopeful. I was telling Laura, prior to this month, Hudson had only slept through the night 6 times. 6 times, because I could literally,
I'm sorry for all of
yeah, I
you.
could almost like tell you the dates. That's how few they were. And then this November, we graduated, and when they were like, "Oh, you don't have to feed him at night anymore," and then I was like, we took the night bottle away, and all of a sudden, 7 times in November, he has slept through the night. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're
Because
making
you're not doing the night
progress.
feeding anymore?
Yeah, so he's
Yeah.
he's getting more. I mean, he'll still sometimes wake up and he'll want like a little consoling, and I'm not a cry it out mom. And so he's like wants a little snuggle, wants a little, and then he'll go back to sleep, which is really nice, except for on the rare occasion where he'll be like an hour and a half of just crying and wanting to go to Ma's house, which is my mom's house. And like I'm like, we're not going to Ma's house. It's 2A, buddy. Like we're going back to bed. Mommy's got to make the bacon in the morning, and we can't be doing this business.
It's tough, I know. If we take a step back for a second, we've all experienced what birth can be like, right? It's not that whole peaceful Zen thing that we all expected. But when you give birth to your child, and I'm assuming that most of you had your baby put on your chest for skin to skin. If not, and they were immediately taken from you, what did you feel like in that moment? Because I can't even imagine where to begin with that, the emotions of it.
Did you guys get skin to skin?
I didn't know.
I didn't exactly, but so I'm like a weird in between because mine wasn't an emergency, but it was really early. Like my water broke. I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought I was peeing. And then I was like, this is not right. I texted my whole family. I was like, I think my water broke. I'm going to head to the hospital. I drove myself to the hospital, which I will never live down. Once I got there, I was like, yeah, I'm just having a C-section. And they're like, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, baby B is breech. And like, it's fine. Like they were like, well, if you want to try like to go through labor naturally, I was like, no, I'm good. Like I don't want stitches in 2 places. Like the likelihood of her turning around is highly unlikely. And they're like, okay, well, we'll just get you into the next C-section. And I was there at 4 a.m. So somebody else had like come in with an emergency C-section. I was like the next one on there. For me, I think it was like even though it was early, it was very much in that like scheduled sort of mindset where there was no like emergencies. Doctors weren't necessarily monitoring my health. The babies looked okay. And so when they took them out, they held them like next to me. And I had like a gown and stuff on. It wasn't like skin time, but I got to see them as soon as they were like taken out of me. It's the only way to really put it, right? And then my best friend was in the operating room with me, which is a different story. But she was able to like go to each of their isolates and like she got like pictures of them and stuff when they were minutes old. I got to see them and like kind of hold them or like at least touch them, not really hold them. And then they were brought into the NICU and I was brought into recovery. So for me, it didn't feel like that, like, cut them out, get them gone thing. Like they still tried to make it a like I want to say as pleasurable as possible, right? And like as connected as possible given the circumstances. So I feel very lucky in that way, but I know that's not everyone's C-section experience.
I feel like because I already had a diagnosis, so there was no surprises. Not no surprises, but I didn't have, I guess my expectations were not grand. Like I was like, told my doctor, like, yes, delayed clamping or skin to skin, like all of that. But when kind of knew I was going to end up having a C-section, it just felt like it was probably just going to happen, and it did. And when she came out, her umbilical cord was like ripped. It had ripped from the placenta already. And the doctor wasn't sure if it happened when she pulled her out. They're not really sure, but it is there are, again, with the Down syndrome diagnosis, there can be like issues with umbilical cord and placenta and all of that. So I'm not surprised, but she was basically like taken over to the weighing station. I couldn't really see her, but my sister was there and got to be with her and got some pictures with her. And then she was put in an incubator and whisked off. They literally like stopped her right in front of me and I got to see her. I didn't get to hold her until I did get to go. So once I was taken up to my room, I was able to go to the NICU and see her, but she was under the blue lights and she had this little mask on. She looked like a little superhero.
We had those too.
She's so cute in a way. I didn't get to hold her for skin to skin until the next morning, and I still think about that.
That's so interesting to me because I did, so even though they were in isolates, like I did get to hold them and they had like the eyes on, they were on CPAP machines. So they were hooked up to lots of things and I got to hold them. But my family was there too. And I was like, my dad can, like, they can hold them. It's fine. Like, I want them to be held. And our neonatologist was adamant. He was like, I hear you, but no, like, mom is the first to hold them
Yeah,
always. Like,
which is good.
he's like, that's just my rule. I hear you. Because I think you get a lot of parents or other families maybe who come in. I remember going into birth preferences and people are like, yeah, my mother-in-law insists on holding the baby first. And that's like
No,
now a piece, right? It's like a huge resentment thing. So the doctor was like,
fight you.
again, I hear you, but no, like you will be the first one to hold your children. And then for
Yeah.
me, it was, I couldn't hold both of them. I didn't hold both of them together until they were like 12 days old, just because of like the types of cords and stuff that they were on. Like I couldn't get them close enough to hold them together. So my dad was actually the first one to hold Hadley. And she's like 3 pounds, right? She's absolutely tiny. Like Calvin's only 4 pounds, so it's not like he was huge compared to her. But I still got to hold them that night. It's like weird to me, like the difference of in all that same stuff, right? Like they were under the billy-ribbon lights, they had CPAPs on, so they
She
still
had
had
CPAP
all this
too.
stuff.
Yeah, I
So
don't
like,
know why. I don't know
yeah,
why. I mean, um I didn't push for it either, I guess, because I think I was just overwhelmed and scared and like I don't know. It wasn't until the next
yeah.
morning that I got to go down there and I had a great nurse then and she was like willing to help me try to breastfeed and do all that. But yeah, I don't
Super.
know. I did so that second night is a story we can get to, but it was like I don't know if I had a really bad experience with the nurse the second night, and I'm like I don't know if she was the nurse the first night or not. I don't
Yeah.
remember, so I'm like that could have because she was kind of a control freak. So I don't know, but I just let go of it though. Like I went into it knowing that anything would be possible when she came out. I
Yeah, it's
tried.
kind of nice going in and like not knowing what you don't know because then you can't overthink it.
Yeah,
Like
like I
it's
just was like
just
my only thought was her safety, so if I have to have a C-section, I have to have a C-section. I just had to let it go and like medicine is here for this reason and like I was just there was that whole free birth thing and I was kind of diving into that yesterday and I was just like that's great for some people that they get to do that, but that is not the reality for a lot of people and
Yeah.
you can have this plan and
It
nine
changes.
times out of 10 it's probably going to go out the window, you know?
The crazy part
Yeah.
is I never had a plan. Like I really I always wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to be pregnant and I never wanted to give birth, which is, the irony there.
same actually.
Yeah, I always jokingly
I
was
hear
like,
you.
I think I'm gonna have an emergency C-section. When I wake up, the baby's gonna be like in this cute outfit and all cleaned up and all that good stuff. And honestly, it was very similar to what actually happened. They were like, they did a last scan at 8:30 and they're like, yeah, we got to get him out. Like heart rate's dropping. I was on a magnesium drip, which is horrific.
And you couldn't get out of bed.
Couldn't get out of bed, couldn't do anything by
Yeah.
myself. I was so nauseous. And so I was like, okay. And they said, oh, you're going to be a mom in like 1 minute. And I saw him and that was it. They wheeled him out immediately. My cousin like got a picture on the drive-by type thing. And my parents were standing out in the hallway and they're like, where are the grandparents? Can we at least like peek, And he's like, not really. And he like wheeled him right away. And he was born at 10:27. And so at 2, I was still like completely numb, not, functioning, whatever. And I said, can someone like let me know how, like, what, like, what the hell? Where is he okay? Where is he? Like, what's going on? And so then the doctor came down, and at 5 in the morning, my nurse, who I'd had the previous night too, was like, let's go see the baby. I was still on magnesium. I was on magnesium till 11 p.m. that night, which do not recommend, like 0 out of 0. And I had to be wheeled down in the wheelchair and they were like, you can look at him, but you can put your hand in, but we don't trust not that they didn't trust me, but like on the magnesium, it's so hard to function. So they were like, we can't really, because he needs to be completely flat. Yeah, he had the CPAP. He didn't have any oxygen, or he didn't need to be on oxygen, but he had the CPAP, and they had him in like this head thing, which I'm learning now for another story, but I'm the patient and family advisor for my NICU now. I'm learning all this other like behind the scenes stuff, but he had to stay in that for the first 5 days. So every time anyone held him, he had to be completely flat. I did get to hold him, but it wasn't until almost 24 hours later. And then my mom at our NICU, we could only, you were one person that could come in, and then you got one support person, and it couldn't rotate. So
Yeah.
like my mom came with me. Of course, she and my dad had a nice little fight about it, but my mom ended up winning. My dad always threatened to cut it off her and tape it on him. But it was like 3 days before she got to hold him. And so I would, because he was under all the lights and all that stuff for the first couple of days. So I would get to hold him for the feed, and because he was getting like 2 milliliters every 2 hours. I mean, such a small amount. And then he'd have to go back in to get back under the light.
Yep.
It wasn't until like six days where I actually got to like hold him, where I wasn't like, am I gonna break him? Like, what's happening?
Oh, poor baby. Annie, I like almost got emotional just when you were talking, because you said you would have done anything to keep her safe, and like knowing your story and what we had talked about and how emotional that was, like that is so just incredible, very touching, because I know you've been through a lot of the emotions with not just her, but before that.
Amy, I feel like more people need to hear that because, and I mean, same thing, like it sounds like with you, Lindsay, right? Where you're just like, you're not fighting the doctor about holding them. It's like keeping it flat. But it's like, for me, you see so much on Instagram. It's like, oh, I did my birth this way. This is what I brought. And at the end of the day, and I wrote like a thing to all my family because I'm just like a planner. And I was like, here's what to expect, right? They're likely going to go to the NICU, which means X, Y, and Z. Like, if you plan on coming, wear a shirt that is buttoned down because you will take your shirt off to hold my children if they're coming out of their isolates. And everybody did it, right? And it's like, it's not about us in that moment, right? It's about how can we like make sure that these tiny, incredibly fragile humans at this like vulnerable stage in life, how do we keep them safe, right? Like, I don't really care that you did an unmedicated birth and you did your hair 5 minutes later. I did not do that. I didn't shower for a week, like like, and it's like, and then I delegated too. I'm like, if something happens to me, here's who makes decisions about me. If something happens to the babies, it's like my doula's decision, because when she had her kids, they were in the NICU. She had a heart defect. And so she had experience with these, like a high risk sort of early birth experience. I'm like, she's going to be in the right headspace to make decisions medically about a small human, as opposed to like my family who, not that I don't trust them, but they just don't. Caroline is the person who, like, she does this for a living. Right. So yeah, to reiterate what Laura said, if like whatever decisions to keep them safe and healthy is like, why wouldn't you go along with that?
Decision. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think and you prioritize a little bit different when you know, like, okay, like skin to like what is so important to you, skin to skin, and that's kind of an easier thing to accomplish, right? Like you just kind of having to pick and choose the things that, like delayed clamping, we had absolutely no choice because her cord ripped. What are you gonna do? Am I gonna fret about that for the rest of my life, thinking that like that screwed her up somehow? Like, no, I got really into the Goop podcast for a while when I was like living in New York and driving back and forth between St. Louis and New York. And, there was the whole one about birthing and the bacteria from your vagina and la la la. And I was like, oh yeah, that's so interesting and cool. And then it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's just at the end of the day, you wouldn't even know that if we didn't already have science. Like, if that's actually true, you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't know that without the place that we have come medically. They didn't know that in the Middle Ages, that bacteria, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so wild. And I think there's so much pressure with everything, with breastfeeding. And I don't know if also because I'm just old, like I was 40 when I had her, and like I already fretted in life about so many things that I think her diagnosis in general has taught me that, just about like letting go of so much, just so much. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually like really liberating.
I was gonna say it's probably freeing, to be honest. Yeah. Lindsay had said earlier in the beginning of the podcast about navigating the first. How did you guys navigate the first, knowing that a lot of them were hooked up to all of these wires? So, like their first feeds, their first changes, their first baths. How does I guess the nursing staff prepare you for that? And I know, Lindsay, that Hudson was very small. So, walk us
Yeah,
through
I
that.
mean, our team was like cream of the crop. I had one kind of thing happen. That was when we were in the step down NICU, but like the first like 3 weeks were just terrifying. I call it the scary NICU, where it's the beeping is a constant, the alarms are constant. Um, and like there was medical procedures happening all around me because we weren't in separate rooms, so they don't wheel the baby out. If your baby is having a procedure, your baby is having the procedure, and they're in the scary NICU, which I call it, was no curtain separating. It was just, hey, this person's having their heart murmur fixed right here. This little
Like an actual surgery?
Yes. And so I'm like, should I even like be here right now? I'm just sitting there like, okay, I don't want to be in the way, but also it's kind of hard to not notice what's happening around you. But our team was so fantastic and they were just so helpful in every respect. Like even all of my silly dumb questions. What does this even do? What are the IVs that he's getting? Because like I said, I grew up around kids. I have so many cousins, but this is my kid. And no one I knew had a baby in the NICU. Like that wasn't a thing. Even growing up, oh, I'm just gonna go visit my cousin. She just had a baby. My best friend, everything was fine. We walked in and I got to hold her. Like that was what my experience was. So like Hudson had caffeine because it helps your heart. And all of these things that I didn't know. It's like he had this little bag of electrolyte beverage that he had every day. And I'm like, okay, but what are all these tubes? Where is it going? And they explained every single thing. And they were so kind and thoughtful and always wanted me to, if you want to do it, I want you to do it. And I ended up at the time, I mean, we were there for so long. In fact, one of the parking attendant guys, he thought I worked there because I was there so often. And he was like, not working today? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I get up there and I just automatically wipe down my own area and get my own pillowcase. And when we got into this step down, all the nurses would fight over being on Hudson's care team because they knew that I'm the mom that does everything. I go in and I'm there for 12 hours and they're super supportive. And if I needed to take a break, like they would have. But in fact, they were kind of like, hey, it's a nice day. It's not going to be nice very long. If you want to take a little walk, he's going to be fine, that kind of thing. And I did on occasion. And I went down, got my own food and that kind of stuff. But they were so wanting everyone to be hands-on. And I just wanted to jump in and be taught the best way to do stuff in that moment. Yeah, I know how to change a diaper, but I don't know how to change this diaper. So can you
Right.
like
Yeah.
Where you have to fold a preemie
small.
diaper
Right.
because
And I mean,
it's still
Yeah.
too big.
yeah, I mean, his first diaper is like this big and they were still big on it. I actually have them, the progression of all of our diapers.
That's
I'm
so
like a
cute.
weirdo like that. But he was so small and he was so
Yeah.
but you would think he was fragile, but he was such a little rascal. Every day he pulled out his feeding tube. Like I walked in one day and I was like, he took out his CPAP. She's like, again? I'm like, yeah, again.
Mine took their cannulas out all the time. They hated the cannulas.
He's like, get this, and you'd watch him like out of the swaddle, like you'd see his hand like go up, and I'm like, if you can see his hand, he needs to be reswaddled. Mom, you gotta hook him in because he's sneaky like that. To get to your question, they were fabulous they wanted us to do everything that we could possibly do. And they showed, and they were patient and kind. And even when she was like, okay, here's the bottle, now your turn, like you're gonna do it. And one of the nurses, who I still keep in touch with, when we were doing the first bath, I was like, well, what do I do here? She goes, you got to figure it out. Who's going to be at home with you? And I was like, all right, Angela, I got you. She's like, how do you think you should do it? Because he still has all the stuff on, even though.
Yeah, you have to work around all the cords, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Well, see, for me, they let us take them off. Like every Sunday, we took everything off. We had 15 minutes.
everything was a maneuver. How do I maneuver this? On our last week there, we could do window visits so people could come look at him through the window. It was like a little like, how much is that dog in the window type thing. And so I'd be like, all right, well, my dad's coming. And I would just unplug him, turn off the monitors, and walk over to the window and hit the button. They were like, oh, you have a visitor? Yeah. They're like, okay, you know what to do. Like, you're right. One of the student nurses was like, I was showing him what to do, and he was like, oh. I was like, well, I've been here longer than you. This is your first day.
I had a couple of those too, where yeah, they were like on their rotations and they're like, yeah, I don't really want to be in peds, but like they make us do it and blah blah. And it's like,
Great.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Step aside. I'll show you how to
Yeah,
do
I'm
it.
like, I'll just take care of this. You have to go get the food, but other than that, like I'll take care of the rest. Thanks.
Yeah. That has to be hard though to leave your child when they're in the NICU. Because I mean, even just me leaving to go get a shower with Weston being at home and leaving him with just like my mom or something gave me so much anxiety. One, I would ask permission to get my shower. And then secondly, I would be so anxious to even just step away from him. So leaving the NICU, knowing your child is hooked up to all of those things has to feel very differently, right?
I felt the same way. It was like, because I went home after 4 days, I guess, and I came home then. I mean, I don't know that I've ever felt that kind of, I've had a lot of anxiety in my life. I don't know that I've ever felt that kind of anxiety. And like, I don't know what it was. Everything felt weird, like the way my parents were interacting with, because I came back to their house and I, I felt like I was going crazy because I just came home without her. I couldn't even describe how I was feeling, but I don't know if it was just the most bizarre feeling. By the time we left, we were only in there for 11 days. I was much more comfortable because she was getting better, right? But like calling like, because we could only be there from 12 to 12 or from 9 to 9. So we only were allowed to be there 12 hours. You were not allowed to stay overnight. And I just, that phone call before you went to bed to check in was just like, so nerve-wracking every single time, just hoping that you were going to get good news and nothing was wrong because you couldn't be there, And it was, I hated that. I hated it so much, but it is what it is. We came out okay.
It's interesting hearing your guys' stories about like how your NICU was set up because mine was so different. We were in a NICU where we had a double room, but it was a private room. There was nobody, it was just us, and then our care team would come in and out. I could have spent the night if I wanted to. I didn't because the doctors are like, you will heal better if you are sleeping in your own bed versus these like jankety cots. Like, go home, allow yourself to heal. And but then like for me leaving, I think I was like so disassociated at that point. Like I remember kind of crying the first day, but then like just trying to like you're in survival mode. I don't know. Like I
Yeah, I wasn't even
I
crying.
mean,
It was just anxiety. It was just like
yeah.
feeling like I don't even know what to do with myself. Like I just had
Yeah.
a baby and now I came home and she's not here.
So when they pulled Callan out and I remember saying to my best friend, I was like, "Holy shit, they're mine." Like they're here. And Hadley came out, and I had terrible heartburn my entire pregnancy, and neither of them had any hair. And I was like, this is bullshit. Swearing, right? Like, how do neither of them have hair? My heartburn was so bad. Turns out, like when you have twins, it's just like part of the beast. So I think for me, like it didn't entirely register that I had kids and I was leaving them, which sounds so crazy, right? Because they're in your body for, I mean, for me, 7 months, but like you've grown these humans and then to leave them you're like, okay, I'm going home, my dog's there, it's like it's normal, like there shouldn't be kids at home, but there should be, and they're just not there. So it was just like a weird time frame. And I don't know, I think sort of I don't say missing those like firsts, if you will, because I same thing, I was there, it wasn't quite 12 hours a day, but I would do cares 4 times a day and then kind of leave and go home. Is now when they do things, I feel like those moments mean so much more to me. Like we spent so much time learning how to walk, like through physical therapy, like in early intervention, that when they learned how to walk, I was like, it is about damn time, guys. But when they figure out something on their own, and how to like we're in a hotel room today and there's like a refrigerator behind a cabinet door, and Callan like opens the door and then opens the refrigerator, and I'm like, how do you know that that's even back there, man? Like, no, keep the refrigerator closed. And it's like those moments of them figuring things out and like watching them understand the world that like I feel like I value those so much more now because it took them so long to get there. And like those little moments that you sort of cherish at home of like, yeah, drinking out of a bottle or like opening your eyes and smiling, all of that, like was under so much, like it was under other circumstances that like I don't really remember,
Well, and
candidly. Like,
Yeah.
my experience was a lot different because I wasn't even going home.
yeah.
I was living in a Ronald McDonald house. So I was really solo. I would come home once a week for my dog. I mean, obviously he wasn't here by himself. He was with my mom and dad, but so I would leave the hospital. We could stay as long as we wanted. We could be there anytime. I really kind of selfishly, if you will, relish my full sleep.
Yeah, you have
I
to.
had no other responsibilities at the Ronald McDonald House. I think that's why I was able to heal so quickly. And in fact, when I was still a patient in the hospital, the nursing staff was very frustrated with me because my blood pressure was still through the roof. I was still like on IV meds, and I was just never in my hospital room. I was always with Hudson because I'm like, well, I'm gonna be with Hudson. And even if I was just sitting there and I wasn't able to hold him, I was still down there. And they would get like, you need to be back by this time. And I'm like, okay, well, you can check my blood pressure down there or take a little
Yeah.
walk. I'm like, I'm not leaving the hospital. I'm literally down the hall. And
Yep.
so I would leave him at night and it was like, okay. But then I kind of got to the point where I'm like, okay, these are way better trained individuals than I am in terms of dealing with his size, our beginning issues. Like, I don't know half the crap. What am I going to do if I'm there? They're the people, like I'm leaving him with the best possible scenario, like better than a grandma, better than a papa. Like I am leaving him with people who are trained specially to take care of him. And so I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to go, I'm going to eat some food at the Ronald McDonald House. I'm going to climb in my bed and I'm going to sleep for 10 hours. And I didn't breastfeed, so I wasn't pumping. I wasn't doing any of that. So I walked into the hospital every day fresh, like the best that I could have been. And I don't think I would have been that if I wasn't able to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. So I'd be driving like 2 hours every day, 2 hours just to get there, and then 2 hours home every night. But it was very bizarre. It almost didn't seem like he was a real thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
until we came home that I was like, oh, I can't just leave. I have to like get him. You
Yeah.
know, we have to go together. We're like a team now. Whereas when I'd be like, okay, well, I think I'll run over to Target before I head to the Ronald McDonald House and give myself a little loop. It was almost like I had a little like warm up
Yeah.
into motherhood because I'm like, these people, they know their stuff. This is the least worried I am. I was more worried at home. What if he has an alarm and I don't know he's having an alarm because he's not wearing any of
Yeah.
his wires? Like,
I know. I felt that
Right.
way too. I was like, should I get the owlet? And they're like, no, don't do it. You'll just drive yourself crazy.
yes, and that's why I was like, I can't do it because I won't sleep at all. I'll just be staring at it all night long.
my first night home, I flipped out.
Same.
Like I had another anxiety. Like just, I called my sister. I'm like, I need you to come over. I didn't know what to do because yeah, I had people basically holding my hand through it all. And then that first night, oh my gosh, it was just, but it got better like the second night. But yeah, it was, you go from like having so much help, all the best people doing everything they can to just being like, oh my gosh, now I have to do all
This is me? I thought me.
like,
I'm not a nurse.
yeah.
I'm your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did either of your kids go home on oxygen?
No.
So my kids went home on oxygen. And I asked the pediatrician, because that's who like, we were doing our follow-ups with, not the neonatologist. And she was like, yeah, well, you can just like take them off the oxygen and see how they do. And I was like, I'm not just taking my children off oxygen and seeing how they do. Are you kidding me? Like, that's why I got the outlet, because I was like, okay, well, I can take it off in shorter periods of time. And at least that's a way that I feel like I can monitor that for a very specific use case. And then once they came off oxygen, I was like, all right, this thing, it goes off if they kick it wrong. Like,
Right.
Laura, I don't know how you use it all the time. I'm like, once we were,
Time, Laura?
Yeah, we graduated from it like a month ago.
That's good though. I mean,
Yeah.
Listen,
I
you
was
guys
like,
know-
he'll wear it until he's 18, and then I just had to quit cold turkey because I was like, nah.
did it bother you? Did it stress you out more, you think? Or did it give you
Maybe
peace?
in the beginning it did cause me a little more anxiety. I do remember watching a lot, but mine didn't go off that often where it had like a false alarm, which I know that that is one of their reviews is they've had that happen quite a bit is there's a false alarm. But if you don't have it on right, I can understand how that would happen.
I
Yeah.
think again, when you have preemies and the small size is still massive, like didn't matter what I did, like they were just small. It wasn't going to fit appropriately. So
Yeah. But I've definitely learned, I know, Annie, you were talking like this is everything else I've learned to let go because this idea is the worst has already happened. You know what I mean? We already started out so rockily that it was like, okay, well, everything else seems small potatoes. You fell and you bumped yourself and now you have a little bruise. Okay. And I think it honestly, it's definitely made me because I am type A to the extreme. And I always was like, what am I going to be like as a mom? I'm going to be so strung so tight that people are going to be like, Lindsay, you need to cut your shit, you know, like all this stuff. And honestly, maybe it's the universe like needing to like shape me into the better mom because that experience is like, okay, well, listen, we did this, so this is fine. Like we're good. I'm not a calm person regularly, and I still am not. But in my motherhood journey, my family's like, who are you? Like,
yeah, same.
who are you? I'm like, well, what's the big deal if he's climbing up? I'm standing right here. Like, yeah, he's on a 10-foot ladder. It's fine. I'm right here because he wants to. And people are like,
Yeah.
you are not the
If
same
it makes
person.
him happy,
Yeah,
He got up there safely.
yeah,
I'm here to help him if he needs to get down. It's fine.
yeah.
Like
yeah.
why are we
I'm
worried
like,
about
why
it?
is
Yeah.
everybody freaked out? I'm like, he didn't jump off of it yet. I mean, this summer he
Yeah.
was jumping off.
Right.
I live on a lake and he was jumping off the dock by himself. I mean, to us,
That's
but
so
like,
fun
oh
though.
yeah. And he kept going, end of dock, end of dock. I was like, dude, we're not doing end of dock until next year. I didn't even jump off the dock till I was like 12. Okay, buddy. Oh yeah, he's a wild man. He is there. Nothing holds that kid back, let me tell you.
That's how my
Boys.
kids are too. Annie, yours too? Maybe it's a NICU thing.
Yes and no. I was talking about that with her PT today because she has like she'll get on a couch and walk around and she like loves and it's harder to walk on a couch than it is on the ground. But she is such a daredevil up there. But then you put her on Earth and she's like, you know. So I don't know. She's like me. She's very cautious. I was always very cautious.
With anybody that might be listening to this who might have a kid in the NICU or be experiencing an early birth, what advice would each of you have for them?
I know Lindsay said there's a scary NICU. My advice to people, because I'm part of like a moms of multiples group, and there's always conversation about whether or not you land in the NICU, is I just tell people don't be afraid of it. If your kids are in the NICU, it's where they need to be, or singular. Sorry, I think in multiples, it's really your child needs to be, and it's the NICU is what you make of it, right? So you can be involved, you can learn from the nurses. Sounds like Lindsay and I had like a very specific path. I imagine Annie, you did too. You just didn't talk about it as much as we did. They will indulge you as much as you want to be indulged. Like they recognize the fragility of both the children and the moms in that moment. And if you're willing to have those conversations, they will have them with you. If you need to like step back or whatever, they're also there to take care of your children. So that's my advice. Like, yes, it can be scary because your child is in a very fragile place. You are healing, but they are exactly where they need to be.
And I know we talk about advocating for yourself, but also advocating for your child. It sounds like in the NICU, some of you have sort of brought that up throughout the
Yeah. And that can be
conversation.
hard to do in
Yeah.
that time when you're like coming off of drugs or you're on drugs because we all had C-sections, like those are major surgeries and things like that. So making sure that you have someone with you that can be that person and they
Yes.
understand what your wants and needs are too, right? Again, my family knew if there were decisions about the babies that I was unable to make, here's who would make those decisions. And here's what they should look like, right? Like there was no plan necessarily, but here's the preferences. If there's something outside of that, y'all have the conversation, you figure it out, you keep them safe, you keep them healthy. I am a type A planner too, Lindsay, so I hear you. That was my approach to it. Still kind of my approach to parenting.
Really?
Annie, what advice would you have for anybody listening?
I think Kristen nailed it. Kind of just like, yes, they're in the right place they need to be. And I think, yes, having somebody who can help you advocate. If you're a single mom by choice, like I only got to have one person with me at all because Sabina was born during COVID. So, and I chose my sister. I had four people I could choose from, and I chose my one sister who's a nurse practitioner, and she was the absolute best choice because of that for me, because I knew what she could bring to the table medically. and she came in very handy. I will say that, yes, the nurses were amazing, and I think that you can absolutely trust them. I will briefly tell my quick story about the horrible experience I had, where the advocation comes in. My second night, earlier in the, when I first got to hold Sabina, that nurse was like, come back later and we'll try to breastfeed again. So I came back later. That nurse was gone, and we had a new nurse. Now, this is my second night C-section. I was wheeled down in a wheelchair with my sister, and she had to leave because only one person could be in there again because of COVID. So she was still under the lights, and the nurse was so horrible to me about me wanting to hold her and try to breastfeed. She was like, I mean, just mean. Like, it was like she needs to be under the lights. Like, how dare I try to touch my child? It was, and I just was like so taken back. You're like, you're still on drugs. You're still, I mean, it's so overwhelming. And I was just like, okay. And I was like, well, I guess I need to go back to my room. But my sister had took the wheelchair back. And I was like, well, can you call my sister to have her come back down? Because my room is all the way down the hallway. She's like, we're not allowed to call rooms from here. Yeah. No, actually, I guess she did leave the wheelchair with me. I'm sorry. She did leave the wheelchair with me because I had to wheel my own wheelchair, push my own wheelchair back to my room because this woman would not help me. She didn't advocate for me. She didn't say, like, get another nurse to help bring me back. Like, apps just left me completely stranded. And I take myself, I'm pushing my wheelchair. I had barely walked much at all at this point, and I'm crying. This woman came out of like the nursery, and she's like, are you okay? Or this nurse. And so she wheeled me back down. But because my sister was a nurse practitioner, I mean, she was pissed. She was so mad. And she knew one of the head nurse, I think, because she had worked with her at a different hospital. And she just went after them. She went all in and was just like, because it was a horrible experience. It was really, really bad. And I don't think I couldn't stand up for myself in that time the way that my sister could. In a way, I was almost embarrassed because she was so mean. She was so angry. But from then on, they never gave me that nurse again. And everybody was like, I don't know if they were on their best behavior with me, but like never had any more problems after that. And
they were keeping their eyes on you. They're like, she's about to get us in trouble if we mess up.
Right. Well, and they ended up like giving me a great nurse who was just much more mellow, and like I loved her. But I was the only mom that was there like 12 hours a day. Like, I did not see any other parents that were there. So after over time, like, the nurses got to know me and we had a great rapport. But
yeah,
I just don't know that I don't know how I would have handled that situation had I not had the right advocate. You know what I mean? Because even if it was my mom there, she wouldn't have done what my sister did.
Lindsay, what advice would you have?
It's like a couple fold, but I think the one thing to keep in mind is to give yourself grace, because there is a lot of, and I luckily had already been established with a therapist for other traumas, but like, I think the important thing is to like realize that any experience in the NICU, whether you're there for a day or 3 months, is trauma. There's some trauma in there, and there's trauma for you, and there's trauma for your children and or child. And I think being able to give yourself some grace for that, and knowing that you can feel however you feel. Like, the moment is your experience, and your experience might be different from even the mom next to you. The other thing I found was and maybe it was the trauma that bonded, but I've made some really good mom friends based on our NICU time together. In fact, we have weekly play dates with the boys. So we still see them. And there's a couple of others of the moms that we keep in touch with. We live further away, so we don't see each other as often. But I think that it can be, I think Kristen said it, like, whatever you make it to be. And understand there's trauma, give yourself some grace, but it can be a really incredible learning experience. It's made me a better mom. It's allowed me to really kind of be a mom that's not riddled with anxiety all of the time. Because I'm like, oh, well, no, that's not the worst that's ever happened to us. And I remind myself of that. And I think the other thing is, when you're actually there, is ask questions. Say, hey, I really want to do this. Yeah, like what's happening, and how is this helping or hurt? Like, what's the purpose of this? And I found that all of my providers, my care team wanted me to be involved. What do you think? You're the mom, you know? So, but if you don't ask those questions, it can be an experience where you're just there but not really there. And I jumped in, I involved myself because that's just who I am as a person, but also I think it really changed my outcome because I did that.
I agree. And I know I had my turn, but I want to add, I think what Lindsay said is really important because you're in a place there too where like after you have a C-section, most I think insurance covers 5 days, but when you're in the NICU, they're monitoring you too. It's not as direct like your OB would, but if you have questions, if you're like, hey, I don't feel good or things like that, a lot of the nurses have sort of dealt with postpartum moms a lot of, whether it's a C-section or a vaginal birth. And for me, like if I wasn't feeling good in a certain way or like I exclusively pumped for 14 months because latching was just too hard for us because their mouths were too small. And so we just ended up doing that. But if I was having issues like pains with breastfeeding or anything like that, they're there. You can ask the question. It doesn't just have to be about the babies. If you need help too, they can help you.
Wait, I have a question. Did you guys have to wash your own bottles? Not your pumping stuff, but like the bottles?
We didn't have
I
to,
did, but I didn't have
yeah,
to.
we
Yeah.
didn't have to, but I did just because I was sitting there anyway, but we did not have to.
But I kind of felt like I was supposed to, and I don't know if that was just because I had to wash the pumping stuff anyways. But I ended up doing it. I mean, it was kind of nice to get up and do it anyways. But I just wondered. I was like, is this something I'm supposed to be doing? Or am I? But
For the amount of money you're paying to be in there,
yeah, you really shouldn't
no.
have to wash your own bottle, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
that in jest, but also a little bit in truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could
Yeah,
have
thank you.
more conversations about this because it sounds like there are many layers to dive into here too. I know that I think it was maybe you, Annie, that said that you were the only one there for 12 hours, but as somebody who had volunteered in the NICU and at Children's Hospital, I am sure there are parents that just forget about their kids. I know that's really hard to hear, but there are situations where people just don't come see their kids. And that's really sad and upsetting, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, I thought it was weird too. I was like, why? It was like, am I being overbearing? But I literally just sat in that rocking chair and I held her like all day. I just couldn't get enough, and I was like so content doing it. And I was just like, why am I the only parent in here? Some people might have had other kids and stuff. I understand that. There's certain
Yeah, but
situations, but
right.
I was kind of shocked that yeah, that I was
It
like
was
the
that
only one who was
situation.
there every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you get to and this is probably a different episode, and Lindsay, you probably speak to this better because you're more of a long hauler than we were. But like we had a kid next to us who was born at like 27 weeks. And like one day I asked the nurse and I was like, do his parents ever come? But they had like to go back to work because they didn't want to take their maternity leave and paternity leave while their kid was in the NICU. Like they're like, he's
Yeah.
in good hands there, so we'll go to work during the day. And they just happened to come like later at night when I wasn't there, but they're like, no, he's here every day
Yeah.
because I don't like,
Well,
or the parents
maybe
are
she
really
hadn't taken
stuff.
her maternity leave yet if it was 27 weeks, like she was
Yeah.
planning on
So
it.
and they didn't. They were like,
Yeah,
we would rather take it when he can come home and be present. So yeah,
that's a really good point. I never
but
thought about that because yeah.
yeah. The other thing that was interesting, because I asked once too, was like, because the NICU in our hospital was a lockdown unit, and you either had to have like a white bracelet that signified that you had a child in the NICU. It was me and my dad, and then we could bring one person in with us. But it's a lockdown unit, us in addition to having like the tags, because a lot of babies that are from the NICU are because their parents were on drugs. And so they're having withdrawals, or the babies are having withdrawals and other medical complications, and they don't want the parents to come in and try and take them. So like you cannot, yes, like the maternity floor in itself has security, but there's another layer of security to get into the NICU itself because they, in some cases, to keep parents out, which was wild to me.
We had
Yeah.
that too. We had to pick up a phone and like to get through the door.
That's scary. Well, wow.
That was an odd note to end on, but
4-hour
there we go.
podcast on the NICU.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to do this again. Thank you all. I want to thank Kristen, Lindsay, and Annie for trusting us with their stories and for sharing what can be a vulnerable, emotional, and overwhelming roller coaster that is the NICU experience. As each of them have reminded us, while it is incredibly scary, the NICU is also the safest place that your baby can be when they need extra care, time, and support. We've included additional resources in the show notes in case you ever need them, whether it's for yourself, someone you love, or simply to better understand this journey. At Choosing Chaos, we talk a lot about what it means to choose chaos, not because chaos is easy, but because within it we find courage, connection, and growth, and love that we didn't know we were capable of. The NICU is not a path anyone hopes for, but for so many families, it becomes part of their story, a chapter marked by strength, resilience, and patience. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to Choosing Chaos so you never miss more stories of courage, choice, and the beautiful mess of motherhood. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Come join the conversation, share your story, and help us build this community even more. And if today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to follow, rate, and leave a comment. We truly love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing this path with us, and we'll see you next time on Choosing Chaos.